A bored young man casually crushed a pack of instant noodles in his hand, not expecting the crumbs to fall into a miniature ancient kingdom from 3,000 years ago. The people of the tiny nation were stunned to see noodles falling from the sky. Picking them up, they sniffed and were amazed by the smell of beef. The tantalizing aroma made their mouths water. They had been suffering from a famine for 8 years and hadn't had a full meal in 3. The Empress quickly ordered the maids to cook the noodles and share them with the soldiers. But these ancient folks had never tasted something so chewy and delicious. They devoured it like wolves, nearly swallowing their tongues. Watching from outside, the young man realized with shock that his instant noodles could be transmitted to the ancient kingdom through the sand table. Without hesitation, he dumped his last remaining box of noodles into it. In an instant, a giant pack landed in the tiny realm. When opened, it was filled with the same delicious noodles, making the starving people overjoyed. Still, the prince scoffed, saying it wasn't enough to even get stuck in the minister's teeth, let alone end the once-in-a-century famine. Just then, soldiers carried in another bag of noodles, reporting that this magical food was now falling from the sky all over the country, and the royal granaries were almost full. Everyone dropped to their knees to thank the heavens, while the Empress believed it was the spirit of the late general who had died a year ago hearing their prayers from above and sending food to help them. What they didn't know was that the real person behind it all was the young man himself. He had once been the great general of this very nation 3,000 years ago, but was poisoned by a treacherous official and died with regret. By some twist of fate, he had been reborn in the modern world as a poor man, living in a tiny rental room, surviving on instant noodles, and enduring the scolding of his flashy landlady. He thought his life was over until one day, he received an oversized package. Inside was a massive sand table showing the very nation of Qing from 3,000 years ago, complete with moving miniature people. Looking closely, he saw the Empress being forced to abdicate by the prince and the Empress Dowager. Ever since the general's death, Qing had been plagued by disaster, and now the worst famine in a century had struck. They blamed the Empress for her lack of virtue. Furious, the young man watched as the Empress prayed to the heavens, her last resort. The sharp-tongued Dowager declared that if this didn't work, the Empress must step down. Enraged, the young man outside crushed his noodles, unknowingly sending them to Qing. Realizing he could help, he poured in all his food to ease the crisis. But just as things seemed to calm, a soldier rushed in, announcing that 300,000 troops from the northern kingdom were at the gates. Panic spread instantly. The young man outside was furious. No one would have dared challenge Qing when he was alive. Determined to help, he ran out in search of supplies and weapons to aid the Empress in repelling the invading army.